speech by Mario Cuomo 20 years earlier in 1984. Basically tell you the difference, the difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So I think we can get some idea here. Some of the, is it on? This one on. Some of the things he mentioned here about the Republican Party and about the Democratic Party, we can look at this. Okay. We have, for example, here, the second paragraph here, 10 days ago, talking about President Reagan in 1984, said there are people in the United States who are not happy, worry about themselves, their family, and future, and the president didn't understand the fear. Okay, we're talking about Republican president who felt that who felt the U.S. was a shining city on a hill. Okay, what does that mean? A shiny city on a hill. 吴玉东. Yeah. Have you heard of this shining city on a hill?
No.
This is a very biblical thing, talking about a city on a hill that become, almost like a light tower for the humankind. It means you are elevated into at a nice place. People can see you. Almost like our 101. Almost like some of the good things about Taiwan. So the country is on a shining city on a hill. Okay, it's a shining city on a hill, and the president was right. In many ways, U.S. is, but he began to talk about the difference here. He said, but not everyone in the cities is sharing the city's splendor and glory. 吕佩轩. Okay, now, have you watched the PRC's October 1st parade at all? I mean, do you know what happened last Thursday, I think October 1st? Or Friday or Thursday? Do you know what I'm talking about? China's National Day. Okay. Now, if you look at the Tiananmen Square, if you look at the Beijing, Shanghai, lots of, we call it splendor and glory. But then you compare that to the countryside in Hunan or Anhui or even remote area, then you can see the difference. So here, very similar, okay? People like to talk about the two sides of one country. So here, not everyone is sharing this city's splendor and glory. And a shining city is only what the president sees, okay, from the portico. Okay, portico means, the column of the White House and the verandas of his ranch, the terrace of his ranch. But there's another city, okay, this is like beacons, huh? Do we have someone that can help us to understand beacons? Why? Okay, 苏贞颖. No. 王雅琪, 王维杰. Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, 苏贞颖. Okay. Have you heard of the books called A Tale of Two Cities? Never heard of it. Okay. It started with this is the best of the time. This is the worst of the time. A Tale of Two Cities. Okay, now who was the author? Yeah, Dickens. Okay, Charles Dickens, talking about two cities. So here, he is also talking about two cities. The cities, one is city on a hill, but there is another city, another part of the shining city. Some people cannot pay their mortgages. So what do we mean by mortgages? 窦祖康、郑君泽 Yeah. What is a mortgage? By the way, this is a big thing in the U.S. Right? Because part of the American dream is about owning a house. And what is a mortgage? When you buy a house, you pay a down payment, and then you have to pay what we call, monthly payment. You loan the money from the bank, then every month you pay. That's what we call a mortgage. Yeah. Okay, so 房贷 means, hey, not everyone can get a mortgage. He will talk about this later. Why? I mean, if you don't have a reliable job, I don't think the bank will loan you money. So, but sometimes they can't pay their mortgage means they may be losing their jobs. Maybe they have other reason. But most young people cannot even afford one. Means you said, hey, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to borrow some money. I'm going to pay back. The bank said, I'm sorry, I don't think you have the ability. Okay? So that's what we call mortgage. Young people can't afford one. Students can afford the education they need. Very expensive. The other day, I looked at one of my university's doctoral program. I cannot believe it. It's so cheap. Okay? We have an English taught program in my university. Doctoral program. The tuition is the same as our regular pay. Regular tuition. So it's about what, $20,000 right now? Are you paying $20,000 a semester? About right? Yeah. 20,000. 2万块一个学期, am I right? For public universities. I'm sorry, I don't have. How much do you pay for your tuition? Because my parents pay for that. I don't even know, right? So how much do you pay? At least you should see the slip, right? How much do you pay? 30 something? 26. Okay, so let's say 1 year it's about 55 at the most. Okay, but that's still very cheap compared with the public university in the United States. Not to mention the private one. Right, the public university, I think one semester right now it's about 5 times here, at least 5 times, 6 times, and private even more. So that's why he mentioned. And then the middle class parent watch the dream they hope for their children evaporate, just disappear. Okay, so here I think this is what Mario Cuomo is talking about, the difference. Okay, talking about the in this city, in the United States, more people, they are more poor than ever, more family in trouble. I think the same thing can be said about today. Need help but cannot find it. Worse, elderly people, they tremble in the basement of their houses. Okay, people who sleep in the city street, in the gutter, where the glitter doesn't show. Glitter means like 101. But fortunately in Taiwan, we don't have a 101 and then a ghetto on the side. Okay, but some countries you see, nice buildings and then a ghetto, very poor district on the side, without it. I think for a while we have that. How many of you live in Taipei? You don't? Nobody live in Taipei? This is a Hsinchu local school? Okay, so we have people coming from Taipei. You know the hotel, Regent Hotel? Linsen North Road, Jinhua. Okay. There are 2 parks. Number 14 park. 14号, 15号公园. Right? And number 15. And those used to be ghettos. And that was a great contrast when you see the shining new hotel. and then the ghettos of that area. And now it's being relocated. People being relocated. So that's why you see the glitter and the gutter. That's how you rhyme. Trying to make good speech, and then young people without a job and education. Okay. So here he is saying, are you going to see the same country? You ought to know the nation is more a tale of two cities, okay, than just a city on a shining hill. Means Reagan, the Republican, was blinded. He didn't see all that. Okay, so this is what I think we will take a look of what he compared the difference. Okay, he talked about the Republican. Okay. Called trickle down when the rich. Okay, let me give you this paragraph, and then we will see some of them. Okay. In the middle, right here, President Reagan told us from the very beginning he believed in kind of social Darwinism. So what does that mean? 吴凯. What is social Darwinism? You understand Darwin?
Yeah.
Okay, Darwin, evolution, right? But what do we mean by social Darwinism?
I think it means that the lowest class must be eliminated.
Okay, it's a little bit like your university belong to the top university receiving more money, right? And then the next university on the side saying, oh, you didn't do well, so we take away your resources. We'll give it to Tsinghua because the Tsinghua is better. So that's what we call social Darwinism. Means Darwinism means what? Survival of the fittest, right? Of the fittest in the natural world. Okay, but here social Darwinism means those who are not able to compete. Sorry, we were going to put the resource on the one that can compete or do compete. So survival of the fittest here, government, but basically Reagan, the Republican, would say government cannot do everything. So hey, if you are hungry, I'm sorry, the government cannot help you. So you should settle for taking care of the strong. The government should help the strong and hope that economic ambition and charity will do the rest. Means, what do we mean by economic ambition? Means people who are hungry, they say, gosh, I'm going to work real hard so that I will never be hungry again. Okay, so that will help, right? The second part is those people who are doing fine, they say, I feel guilty that we are eating this steak, and then maybe we should give some bones to the poor. Okay, so that would be called charity, right? Helping some other people. So that's what he is saying. That's the Republican philosophy. Okay, and make the rich richer, and what falls to the table will be enough for the middle class and those who are trying desperately to work their way into the middle class. Wow, what do we have in Taiwan? We always said the rich have the meat, and you have the soup, and some people have the bone. Right? 吃肉喝汤. At least I have some bones. Well, I know my dog always being taken good care of. The first thing my wife do every time going out is make sure all the bones go into a bag for the dog. I mean, she thinks of the dog more than thinking of me, I think. So this is what the Republican philosophy, and they call it trickle down. Okay, the top will get something, and then gradually trickle. So we need to take care of Wang Yongqing. We need to take care of Zhang Zhongmo, Maurice Zhang, because if they do well, gradually everyone, Tsinghua student will do well. If Tsinghua graduate work in the science park, earn great money, then maybe those people who work in the surrounding area selling lunchbox will get better. Operating a restaurant will, have some better, and those truck drivers will have something to transport, and then the betel nut ladies will have some truck drivers to buy the betel nuts. Right? So can you see the trickle down from Morris Chang all the way to the betel nuts lady? So that's what Republican idea, okay? And they call it supply side. This is the economic term, okay? But the same shining city, for those relative few, are very lucky enough to live in its good neighborhoods, okay? So it means there are a lot of poor people being excluded. Okay, so here he's talking about the difference. He said the difference between Democrats and Republicans have always been measured in courage and confidence. Republicans believe, okay, the wagon train will not make it to the frontier unless some of the old, some of the young, some of the weak are left behind by the side of the trail. Means, hey, you have to throw away some, you are preventing us from moving forward, so we have to leave you behind. The strong, they said, will inherit the land. Okay, not the weak one. Okay. But the Democrats believe in something else. He said, can make it all the way with the whole family together intact, and we have more than one. Okay, now, Franklin Roosevelt, Xu Hanli. Who is Franklin Roosevelt? Roosevelt, have you heard of a president called Roosevelt? Or we have actually in Taipei, Roosevelt Road, to remember him. Okay? So who is this Roosevelt anyway? This is the U.S. president during World War II. Okay, the one sitting there with Chiang Kai-shek and Madame Chiang Kai-shek. Have you seen that picture? Churchill, Roosevelt, Chiang Kai-shek looking straight forward, and then Madame Chiang Kai-shek was chatting. Okay, I don't know why Chiang Kai-shek was sitting there, because I don't think he's communicating at all. But anyway, you know who is Franklin Roosevelt now. Okay, he lifted himself from his wheelchair. Strangely, he has polio. He has, he's on wheelchair. And very few Americans knew that their president was on wheelchair. Okay, but he was on wheelchair, but he lifted the nation from its knees. Okay, knees means you're down. Lift you from your knees means you're standing up. From what? Standing up from what? Not World War II. I don't think the Nazi invaded the United States or occupied the U.S. So what is it? Depression. Okay, it's a little bit like right now. Okay, depression. Right. So that's one time a Democratic president lift the nation from its knees. The wagon train after wagon train. Means going to the new frontier. New frontier, something new. Okay, what kind of frontier? Education. Okay, why we talk about education? Because it is the education that open up opportunities for people. New frontier in education. I think we gave you this term before. Affirmative action. Affirmative action. Okay. Open up opportunity for women, for minorities to go into higher education, even though they might not be as qualified, but still they will allow. And education, removing the racial barrier, so you can go to your neighborhood school. Housing. Fair housing means during Lyndon Blaine Johnson. Okay, who is Lyndon Blaine Johnson? Li Zichuan. LBJ. LeBron James. LBJ, right? No, LBJ today is LeBron James. Okay, I know that the NBA is coming, but If you go to the U.S. before LeBron, 10 years ago, LBJ is never LeBron James. Okay, this is LBJ, right? But this is we're talking about this President Lyndon Blaine Johnson. This is the president who has not been very popular because of the Vietnam War in the 60s, but he was a very good president for domestic politics in terms of civil rights. So housing means no one can say, I'm not going to rent my house to you or sell my house to you because of the color of your skin. So that's a new frontier. Housing, peace, whole family abort. Means everyone can join this train or wagon train going to the new frontier. Right? Reaching out to extend and enlarge their family to be, we call inclusive. Okay, that's a key word for the Democratic Party. They always talk about being inclusive. So lifting them up in the wagon on the way means almost like picking up and put them saying, hey, we can go to the destiny together, to the new frontier together. Black, Hispanic people of every ethnic group, Native American, American Indians, and all those struggling to build their family and claim some small share of America. So this is what I think the Democrats are talking about. They said, always try to go together. There's always room. Some of us in this room today are here only because the nation has that kind of confidence, so they will be able to carry everyone. Okay, I think that part is very similar to the speech of Obama. So we're going to see this speech, very short, but you can see how this guy, Cuomo, was doing so well with the speech. Okay, let's get the speech. Did I do wrong?
Let me spell the WW.
WWS, oh, there is a T, okay.
Francisco, the Democratic National Convention was held on July 16, 1984. Here, the keynote address by New York Governor Mario Cuomo featured the tale of two cities.
10 days ago, President Reagan admitted that although some people in this country seem to be doing well nowadays, others were unhappy, even worried about themselves, their families, and their futures. The president said that he didn't understand that fear. He said, why, this country is a shining city on a hill. And the president is right. In many ways, we are a shining city on a hill. But the hard truth is that not everyone is sharing in this city's splendor and glory. A shining city is perhaps all the president sees from the portico of the White House and the veranda of his ranch, where everyone seems to be doing well. But there's another city. There's another part of the shining city. The part where some people can't pay their mortgages, and most young people can't afford one. Where students can't afford the education they need, and middle-class parents watch the dreams they hold for their children evaporate. In this part of the city, there are more poor than ever, more families in trouble, more and more people who need help but can't find it. Even worse, there are elderly people who tremble in the basements of the houses there. And there are people who sleep in the city streets, in the gutter, where the glitter doesn't show. There are ghettos where thousands of young people without a job or an education give their lives away to drug dealers every day. There is despair, Mr. President, in the faces that you don't see, in the places that you don't visit, in your shining city. In fact, Mr. President, this is a nation Mr. President, you ought to know that this nation is more a tale of two cities than it is just a shining city on a hill. Maybe, Mr. President, if you visited some more places, maybe if you went to Appalachia where some people still live in sheds, maybe if you went to Lackawanna where thousands of unemployed steel workers wonder why we subsidize foreign steel. Maybe, Mr. President, if you stopped in at a shelter in Chicago and spoke to the homeless there. Maybe, Mr. President, if you asked a woman who had been denied the help she needed to feed her children because you said you needed the money for a tax break for a millionaire or for a missile we couldn't afford to use. Maybe, Mr. President, but I'm afraid not. Because the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, that this is how we were warned it would be. President Reagan told us from the very beginning that he believed in a kind of social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. Government can't do everything, we were told, so it should settle for taking care of the strong and hope that economic ambition and charity will do the rest. Make the rich richer, and what falls from the table will be enough for the middle class and those who are trying desperately to work their way into the middle class. You know, the Republicans called it trickle down when Hoover tried it. Now they call it supply side, but it's the same shining city for those relative few who are lucky enough to live in its good neighborhoods. But for the people who are excluded, for the people who are locked out, all they can do is stare from a distance at that city's glimmering towers. The Republicans believe that the wagon train will not make it to the frontier unless some of the old, some of the young, some of the weak are left behind by the side of the trail. The strong, they tell us, will inherit the land. We Democrats believe in something else. We Democrats believe that we can make it all the way with the whole family intact, and we have more than once. Ever since Franklin Roosevelt lifted himself from his wheelchair to lift this nation from its knees, wagon train after wagon train to new frontiers of education, housing, peace, the whole family aboard, constantly reaching out to extend and enlarge that family, lifting them up into the wagon on the way, blacks and Hispanics and people of every ethnic group and Native Americans, all those struggling to build their families and claim some small share of America. We Democrats must unite. We Democrats must unite so that the entire nation can unite. Because surely the Republicans won't bring this country together. Their policies divide the nation into the lucky and the left out, into the royalty and the rabble. The Republicans are willing to treat that division as victory. They would cut this nation in half into those temporarily better off and those worse off than before, and they would call that division recovery. Now, Democrats believe that we must be the family of America, recognizing that at the heart of the matter we are bound one to another. that the problems of a retired school teacher in Duluth are our problems, that the future of the child in Buffalo is our future, that the struggle of a disabled man in Boston to survive and live decently is our struggle, that the hunger of a woman in Little Rock is our hunger, that the failure anywhere to provide what reasonably we might to avoid pain is our failure. And I ask you now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, for the good of all of us, for the love of this great nation, for the family of America, for the love of God, please make this nation remember how futures are built. Thank you and God bless you.
Okay, very short one, but I don't know whether you can tell the similarity. Lin Zhenghao. Have you read Obama's speech? Yeah. What's the similarity there? Do you recall anything?
We were studying about the America was
America is what?
like a family, like we love.
Okay. What else? Do you remember he talked about like if someone's is hungry, someone cannot afford the health care. Even though she's not my grandmother, she's my problem. Very similar to Cuomo's idea. If someone else is hungry, I should also be hungry. Okay, and this is something I have to develop myself in Taiwan. I have very low tolerance for people who do not recognize direction. Okay, especially in driving. Okay, I'm very good in direction. And then when people said, well, they cannot, know the east or the west, I have trouble like where are you from? Okay, so that's my problem. I have problem with students who easily get sick because I don't get sick often. So I have very little sympathy before, and now I'm learning. Okay, I'm lucky, just a little bit like what Cuomo said. I've been back to Taiwan for about 14 years now. Altogether, I probably was sick for less than a week. Okay, so every time I heard a student say, I cannot make it to the class because of flu, and also my assistant in my office always sneezing. I said, what's wrong with you? Okay, so I have that problem. When I was in the military in Taiwan, I realized that people cannot shut one eye, shooting, and just cannot, close one eye. Then they are not everyone like you. Okay, not everyone knows all the direction. Not everyone, can go to different places without fear. So what I think Cuomo is saying, in the Republican philosophy, they believe the individual, if you work hard enough, you should be able to succeed. If you fail, maybe you haven't worked hard enough. Okay? But the Democrats said, yes, even if you work hard enough, but there might be obstacle preventing you from succeeding. Okay, I think that's a totally different view of human nature. Okay, and Republicans believe if you provide welfare, if you make life easier for people, they will be lazy, they will not be working as hard. Okay, but if you let them, give them equal opportunity, they know if they can work hard and get a better life, they will. Okay? So this is, I think, the difference between the Republican and the Democratic Party. Also talk about Democratic Party being inclusive, right? Native American, Hispanic, Black, minorities. But then we go back to the history. Okay, which party was the party that emancipated the Black? 游志权. Which party? 刘佑章, 庄子成. 郑立伟. Okay, which party liberate or emancipated the blacks, the slavery? I mean, get rid of the slavery in America. No, it's who was the president? The famous president ended the Civil War, and then we call emancipate the slaves. Which president? Lincoln. Okay, but Lincoln, he's from the Republican Party. Okay, the Democratic Party was the party of the South. The Democratic was the party of slavery before. Now, what happened? Now the Republican Party is the party of the all the blue, right? The red here, all the red. All this at the South, right? Okay, if we put all the southern states, these are the states that seceded from the Union. These are the states that fought the Civil War, wanted to protect slavery. That's the Democratic Party before. And now, these are all Republican states. So what happened? Anyone? 宋维达在吗？古文家张文轩、杨东彦、范家展。Yeah. Okay. What happened? Republican Party, if we trace all the way back, is the Federalist Party. Okay, what is a Federalist? If we trace all the way back, Republican Party belonged to the Federalist. And the Democratic Party belonged to the anti-Federalist. Okay. So what is a Federalist? Federation, federal? Lin Jingqi. Yeah, what is a Federalist? You understand what is federalism? Federal, federation, 联邦. Okay, so most of the big country is a federation, right? The only exception is where? Which country is centralized? China. Okay, so China is crazy. I mean, China is the only country with such a huge population, huge land area, but not a federation. Okay. And the worst thing about China is what? The entire China is in one time zone, right? Wow, we love it. In Taiwan, we used to say 中原标准时间. Gosh, from Manchuria all the way to Xinjiang, Tibet, one time zone. Okay, that's a very centralized state. But America started. Okay, the debate is federalist. Means people would believe there is a central government sharing power with the local government. But anti-federalists is not those who argue for strong central government. Anti-federalists are the ones who said, no, we don't trust another central government sharing power. We want the local government, the state government, to have more power. So anti-federalists today will be more like what? More like a confederation. Okay, we will call confederation. So if we use today's family analogy, right? Traditional family will be a centralized family. The central government, maybe your parents have the authority, right? Now it's more like a federation sharing power, okay? But the kids mostly like to make their own decision. That's a confederation. You know, maintaining a family, but they can make their own decision. Confederation. So anti-federalists do not want the central government to be too strong. And who are the federalists? In the very beginning, yesterday, I think HBO showed this movie. John Adams, the second president of the United States, from Boston, from Massachusetts. Okay. Why they want a central government? Because Massachusetts is a commerce state, has some industry. They want the government to protect the industry so they are not going to face the competition from Europe. America was a latecomer to industrialization. So that's why. Okay, John Adams. And then there is a guy who appeared on U.S. currency, $10 bill, called Alexander Hamilton. So these are the people who believe the federal government has a role. Okay, they believe the government needs to somehow intervene in the economy somewhat. So this is the Federalist. The Anti-Federalists, represented by Thomas Jefferson. Okay. They are representing the agricultural interest, tobacco interest, and they do not want government to set up, we call tariff. Tariff, you understand tariff? You go to buy something, they tax you, and you want to go duty-free sometimes, you know, at the airport, you go out. What is a tariff? We have once, you know, WTO, we joined the WTO to lower our tariff. So, 履历生, what is tariff? T-A-R-I-F-F, tariff. A form of tax, import duty, import tax. 关税, 进口税, 关税, right? Now, why would they, you know, why would tobacco grower or, you know, cotton grower in the South, you know, all those white people who are rich, they do not want to have any kind of import tax. I mean, what does that do to them? I mean, import tax will make some of the machines maybe coming from Europe will be more expensive. That's it. But the reason why they do not want import tax is if you tax the European manufacturing goods in the United States, what would European country do? They say, oh, you tax me, I'll tax you. So they will have, we call, a trade war. That will hurt the export of American cottons or American tobacco. Sometimes we call it retaliation, retaliatory tariff. Right? People tax you, you also put tax, so we call erecting the tariff war, 壁垒, 这什么贸易壁垒, right? So the South doesn't like all those tariffs. And they don't want government to intervene. They just want to export their agricultural product. So, they want to protect. They believe this government is the best government, govern the least. They believe the best government is the government that close at hand. Okay, yesterday we have a typhoon. So this is where I think we have a debate about the central government and local government. 赖世恩 有在吗? Okay, what was the problem with yesterday's typhoon? There was people complaining about central government and local government. What is it? Whether we should have a day off, right? Now, whom do you think should make the decision? Our central government or the local government? Local government. Hey, local government. What happened if they all, get together like Tsinghua University? You can make your own decision whether to hold class. Oh, no class. Right? Like yesterday, I learned Chinese Culture University. They didn't have class in the evening. Like, is that good? Or and they just taking the advantage of you can make the decision, so you become lazy. How much our government have lost. I'm sorry, because I know someone who worked in the science park. Very upset with all those typhoon days off, because he lost a lot of money. Okay, but then the question is, if we allow the local government, some people might want to please people and then make the decision. Who knows? Okay, but okay, yeah, you're right. Local government in Yilan probably understand better, right? Central government, some of people who are as illiterate with the meteorology, they would look at the map saying, oh, the typhoon is in the southwest. Yeah, Taitung should have a day off. Right? But the rain came in Yilan. Right? Totally different. So local people will know the problem better. Okay, I think that's anti-federalist position. It's saying everything should be decided at home. But, so gradually, what happened? Okay, this developed into two groups. And anti-federalists later become, we call democratic Republicans. Okay, and then becoming, we call national Republicans. There is a famous guy here called Andrew Jackson. And then become, I'm sorry, not national, I'm sorry, National Democrat. And then become Democrats. Okay? And the Federalists later become the Whig party, and then become Republican. Okay. One more question about this development. Zhang Genhao, Xu Wenjing. Now, do you know what? Have you ever heard of Whigs in studying British history? In the 17th century, the British political parties developed. You have two groups. What are the two British political parties today? Do you know? American, we have Democrats and Republican. What about Great Britain? Labour and 工党、农党、工党、商党、工党、士农工商。What is the other party in Great Britain? The party of Margaret Thatcher. I know you never heard of her before, but fine. The party of Winston Churchill. How about that? Would that help? Gongdang and conservatives. Okay, now 保守党 and Gongdang. What are their nicknames? Okay, this we go back to the 16th century. I don't know whether your high school textbook, history textbook have this. One of them is called we. What's the other one? Tory. T-O-R-Y. Tory. 辉格. It's still in your high school textbook? History book? Okay, maybe, I haven't seen, maybe it has been simplified. But it's called Tory and we, right? So here, now, Tory was the conservative. Tory is the aristocrat. We represent the workers, the Labour Party today. If someone from Great Britain said, I am a Whig, that means he is a Labour rights. Okay. I am a Tory means I am a conservative. Okay. Republican means not Tory. Today we associate conservatism with Republican. But Republicans start, their predecessor, the Whig Party, caring about the workers in the urban area. So, and this is 1856. Okay, the Republican Party being established, the Grand Old Party, GOP. Sometimes you will see the GOP. So, 1856, and then 4 years later they won because there were 3 Democrats running for presidential election. So Lincoln won. Okay, and Civil War, emancipation, black, freed, and were able to represent in the South, okay, in America, places like Mississippi, electing black representatives. But what happened? I mean, you're having in the American Constitution before, the black is not 100% U.S. citizen. In American Constitution, one time, how did they count the black population? Okay, people in the South, right? If you want to elect a representative, it's based on population. Now, if we only count the white people, then the South will have less weight in the Congress. So the South said, no, you have to include the black, but the blacks are slaves. They cannot vote. How do you count them? This is very funny. This is recorded in American Constitution. The black constitute 3/5 of a white, of a citizen, of a person. So, okay, 60%. Like, if you have 5, okay, that equals 3. Okay? So when you vote, when you count, you can have that. And now, there are a lot of slaves in the South, and now free, and now they're 100%, not 60%. Okay, they're 100%. So it's easy to elect them in the South. Now, if that continues, we will have a lot of black representatives from the South. But it didn't happen only for 12 years. From 1865, the end of the Civil War, until 1877, a period, a 12-year period we call Reconstruction. What do you mean by Reconstruction? Yeah, I have a reconstructed knee after my sports injury. What is reconstructed? Well, we have reconstruction in Xiaolingchun village. What is reconstruction? You understand construction. Construction. Okay. Reconstruction. After the typhoon, after a disaster, what do we have? A rebuild. to rebuild the society, right? So after the Civil War, you have 12 years. You have Reconstruction, okay? But what happened? The Republican didn't finish the job in the South. Why? They withdrew from the South. The reason, very easy. In 1876, the presidential election of 1876, there is some controversial ballots in Florida again. Okay, you heard about the Florida of 2000. Bush won, Florida's electoral college vote. So in 1876, again, there was some problem with the Florida votes. And then the Republican was in power, so they counted. And they said, they make the decision like the Supreme Court in 2000, and the vote will all go to Republican Party candidate. So the Republican presidential candidate won the election by one electoral college vote, 185 to 184. Okay, but in exchange for Democratic Party to accept the result, the Republican withdrew from the South. Once the Republican withdrew from the South, the Democrats, the white, the former slave owner, looked at the black, said, actually, you can vote, but first, have you paid tax? Can you read? Okay, they're using, we call Jim Crow law, some kind of law to prevent black from voting. Okay, Jim Crow law. Like checking whether you pay tax, whether you have some kind of education, whether you are able to read, and using that to prevent people from voting. So black, again, being disenfranchised means they are deprived their right to vote in the South again. So the South is totally democratic, very conservative, white. Okay. After the break, we will look why today the South is black. Okay. Let's take a break now. To Cuomo.
For the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in Boston. He spoke about his personal background and about the Democratic Party. Here is that speech in its entirety.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dick Durbin. You make us all proud. On behalf of the great state of Illinois, crossroads of a nation, land of Lincoln, let me express my deepest gratitude for the privilege of addressing this convention. Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British. But my grandfather had larger dreams for his son. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before. While studying here, my father met my mother. She was born in a town on the other side of the world, in Kansas. Her father worked worked on oil rigs and farms through most of the Depression. The day after Pearl Harbor, my grandfather signed up for duty, joined Patton's army, marched across Europe. Back home, my grandmother raised a baby and went to work on a bomber assembly line. After the war, they studied on the GI Bill, bought a house through FHA, and later moved west, all the way to Hawaii in search of opportunity. And they too had big dreams for their daughter. A common dream born of two continents. My parents shared not only an improbable love, they shared an abiding faith in the possibilities of this nation. They would give me an African name, Barack or Blessing, believing that in a tolerant America, your name is no barrier to success. They imagined me going to the best schools in the land, even though they weren't rich, because in a generous America, you don't have to be rich to achieve your potential. They're both passed away now. And yet I know that on this night, they look down on me with great pride. They stand here, and I stand here today, grateful for the diversity of my heritage, aware that my parents' dreams live on in my two precious daughters. I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible. Tonight, we gather to affirm the greatness of our nation. Not because of the height of our skyscrapers, or the power of our military, or the size of our economy. Our pride is based on a very simple premise, summed up in a declaration made over 200 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the true genius of America. A faith in simple dreams, an insistence on small miracles, that we can tuck in our children at night and know that they are fed and clothed and safe from harm. That we can say what we think, write what we think without hearing a sudden knock on the door. That we can have an idea and start our own business without paying a bribe. That we can participate in the political process without fear of retribution, and that our votes will be counted, at least most of the time. This year, in this election, we are called to reaffirm our values and our commitments, to hold them against a hard reality, and see how we're measuring up to the legacy of our forebears and the promise of future generations. And fellow Americans, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, I say to you tonight, we have more work to do. More work to do for the workers I met in Galesburg, Illinois, who are losing their union jobs at the Maytag plant that's moving to Mexico, and now are having to compete with their own children for jobs that pay $7 an hour. More to do for the father that I met who was losing his job and choking back the tears, wondering how he would pay $4,500 a month for the drugs his son needs without the health benefits that he counted on. More to do for the young woman in East St. Louis, and thousands more like her, who has the grades, has the drive, has the will, but doesn't have the money to go to college. Now, don't get me wrong, the people I meet in small towns and big cities, in diners and office parks, they don't expect government to solve all their problems. They know they have to work hard to get ahead, and they want to. Go into the collar counties around Chicago, and people will tell you they don't want their tax money wasted by a welfare agency or by the Pentagon. Go into any inner city neighborhood, and folks will tell you
that government alone can't teach our kids to learn. They know that parents have to teach that children can't achieve unless we raise their expectations and turn off the television sets and eradicate the slander that says a black youth with a book is acting white. They know those things. People don't expect government to solve all their problems. But they sense deep in their bones that with just a slight change in priorities, we can make sure that every child in America has a decent shot at life. And that the doors of opportunity remain open to all. They know we can do better. And they want that choice. In this election, we offer that choice. Our party has chosen a man to lead us who embodies the best this country has to offer. And that man is John Kerry. John Kerry understands the ideals of community, faith, and service because they've defined his life. From his heroic service to Vietnam, to his years as a prosecutor and lieutenant governor, through 2 decades in the United States Senate, he's devoted himself to this country. Again and again, we've seen him make tough choices when easier ones were available. His values and his record affirm what is best in us. John Kerry believes in an America where hard work is rewarded. So instead of offering tax breaks to companies shipping jobs overseas, he offers them to companies creating jobs here at home. John Kerry believes in an America where all Americans can afford the same health coverage our politicians in Washington have for themselves. John Kerry believes in energy independence, so we aren't held hostage to the profits of oil companies or the sabotage of foreign oil fields. John Kerry believes in the constitutional freedoms that have made our country the envy of the world, and he will never sacrifice our basic liberties, nor use faith as a wedge to divide us. And John Kerry believes that in a dangerous world, war must be an option sometimes, but it should never be the first option. You know, a while back, I met a young man named Seamus in a VFW hall in East Moline, Illinois. He was a good-looking kid, 6'2", 6'3", clear-eyed with an easy smile. He told me he joined the Marines and was heading to Iraq the following week. And as I listened to him explain why he didn't listen, the absolute faith he had in our country and its leaders, his devotion to duty and service, I thought, this young man was all that any of us might ever hope for in a child. But then I asked myself, are we serving Seamus as well as he's serving us? I thought of the 900 men and women, sons and daughters, husbands and wives, friends and neighbors who won't be returning to their own hometowns. I thought of the families I've met who were struggling to get by without a loved one's full income, or whose loved ones had returned with a limb missing or nerves shattered, but still lacked long-term health benefits because they were reservists. When we send our young men and women into harm's way, we have a solemn obligation not to fudge the numbers or shade the truth about why they are going, to care for their families while they're gone, to tend to the soldiers upon their return, and to never, ever go to war without enough troops to win the war, secure the peace, and earn the respect of the world. Now let me be clear. We have real enemies in the world. These enemies must be found, they must be pursued, and they must be defeated. John Kerry knows this. And just as Lieutenant Kerry did not hesitate to risk his life to protect the men who served with him in Vietnam, President Kerry will not hesitate one moment to use our military might to keep America safe and secure. John Kerry believes in America. And he knows that it's not enough for just some of us to prosper. For alongside our famous individualism, there's another ingredient in the American saga. a belief that we're all connected as one people. If there's a child on the south side of Chicago who can't read, that matters to me even if it's not my child. If there's a senior citizen somewhere who can't pay for their prescription drugs and having to choose between medicine and the rent, that makes my life poor even if it's not my grandparent. If there's an Arab American family being rounded up without benefit of an attorney or due process, that threatens my civil liberties. It is that fundamental belief. It is that fundamental belief. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper that makes this country work. It's what allows us to pursue our individual dreams and yet still come together as one American family. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. Now, even as we speak, there are those who are preparing to divide us. The spin masters, the negative ad peddlers, who embrace the politics of anything goes. Well, I say to them tonight, there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America. The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states. Red states for Republicans, blue states for Democrats. But I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states. We coach Little League in the blue states, and yes, we've got some gay friends in the red states. There are patriots who opposed the war in Iraq, and there are patriots who supported the war in Iraq. We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America. In the end, that's what this election is about. Do we participate in a politics of cynicism, or do we participate in a politics of hope? John Kerry calls on us to hope. John Edwards calls on us to hope. I'm not talking about blind optimism here, the almost willful ignorance that thinks unemployment will go away if we just don't think about it, or healthcare crisis will solve itself if we just ignore it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something more substantial. It's the hope of slaves sitting around a fire singing freedom songs. The hope of immigrants setting out for distant shores. The hope of a young naval lieutenant bravely patrolling the Mekong Delta. The hope of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds. The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too. Hope in the face of difficulty. Hope in the face of uncertainty. The audacity of hope. In the end, that is God's greatest gift to us, the bedrock of this nation. A belief in things not seen. A belief that there are better days ahead. I believe that we can give our middle class relief and provide working families with a road to opportunity. I believe we can provide jobs to the jobless, homes to the homeless, and reclaim young people in cities across America from violence and despair. I believe that we have a righteous wind in our backs, and that as we stand on the crossroads of history, we can make the right choices and meet the challenges that face us. America, tonight, if you feel the same energy that I do, if you feel the same urgency that I do, if you feel the same passion that I do, if you feel the same hopefulness that I do, if we do what we must do, then I have no doubt that all across the country, from Florida to Oregon, from Washington to Maine, the people will rise up in November, and John Kerry will be sworn in as president, and John Edwards will be sworn in as vice president, and this country will reclaim its promise And out of this long political darkness, a brighter day will come. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.
Okay. Now, if you look at his speech, very similar to the one, and remember at the end, talk about the audacity of hope. He gave the speech in 2004, and he was elected Senate, U.S. Senator, and then he began to write this book, and he put down all his thoughts about the most important issues in American politics, and based on that, he went on to campaign and win the Democratic nomination. So, again, coming back to earlier, we talked about the difference between Democratic and Republican Party. Now, going back to the 19th century, why the Republican Party, the party that liberated the South, that the party that emancipated the slave, and now became the party of the South, of the white minority, of the white in the South, whereas the Democrat, who used to be controlling the South, and now, basically have been put into the Northeast and the West, which used to be the Republican stronghold. So if you compare a map, electoral map, election map of 1896 to the one today, it's almost exactly switching position. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party just switched their position. So what happened? Okay, Republican Party, I mentioned, was the party of the industrialists, the party of the urbanites, people who live in the urban area, people who want to liberate the blacks. Maybe we consider them to be more progressive. But then the question is, once the slaves were liberated, they were allowed to move to the north. They began to live in the city, and they began to live in a segregated city. Okay. What do you mean by segregation? Okay, segregation. Yeah, what is segregation? Separation. You understand separation? Segregation is like separate people. So what happened is segregation means the blacks migrated to the north and lived in the city, but in black neighborhood. Suddenly, the white people in the north say, hey, we want to free you to maintain your dignity, but really we don't want to associate with you. Why are you coming to the north? Why aren't you staying in the south? And then the white people in the south look at the Republican in the north saying, hey, you are hypocrites. We actually live with the black. They are part of the family, even though they're slaves, but, we have no problem with that. And we emancipate them, we take good care of them. You emancipate them, but you didn't take good care of them. Even though they were slaves, but they are part of our family. So it is funny, if you look at this. Blacks in the South mingle with the white, whereas in the North, it was segregated in the big city. But gradually, they are competing with the new immigrants, like the Irish, the East Europeans, the Italians coming from Europe in the late 19th century. So, yes, They were still part of the Republican in the early years of the 20th century, but gradually they found the Democratic Party has become a party that is a coalition. Okay, first, the Democratic Party still have all those people from the South. So conservative, white Democrats in the South, that's part of it. But Democratic Party also has the agricultural interests and mining interests of the West. Okay, and gradually, because of the Democratic Party tolerance, religious tolerance, or the machines they have in the city, Irish Americans, Italian Americans who came to the United States, they couldn't find jobs, but they find something more useful. We call patronage. Patronage is almost like in Taipei, let's say Taipei, we always have all kinds of 同乡会, right? So we'll take good care of you. You're from Yunlin, you're from Jiayi, Jiayi Lübeck 同乡会. A little bit like, I don't know, whether do you have some of those high school 同学会, like 雄中雄女同学会 here? Do you have one? No? Not in Hsinchu? My university has one. Your university doesn't have one? Like 台南一中、台南女中同学会. Okay, so you take care of your, help them get housing, tell them where to find the best food, but sometimes also introducing them to what? Teaching, private tutor. 你们没有帮学弟学妹介绍家教吗？有吧？有没有？ Well, you're a pretty selfish generation, huh? You don't take care of one another. But that's what we call patronage. New immigrants coming, the older generation of immigrants would take good care of them. I'll give you one story. Korean immigrants went to the United States, and somehow, without borrowing money from the bank, they started their own small business. How? Because the Korean Americans, maybe you find 10 families, 10 of them, will help one new immigrant arriving, just newly arrived, and provide some of money. In Taiwan, almost like 标会一样, okay? So he can borrow this money but pay back later. And because they are giving some investment in this new immigrant, so they want him to be successful. So they will help him. And once he becomes successful, he can pay back. So that's how they help each other. And then the American bank look at this new immigrants like, where did you get the funding? They try to figure out where you get funding. Because he doesn't have any credit, where does he borrow the money? Why are you doing this? But this is what we call a network of patronage. So the Democratic Party in the North began to develop, we call a patronage system for the new immigrants. So we began to find the new immigrants, the Catholics, who are not, the traditional white in the North, like the Protestant, the German, the British, the Scottish immigrants. They are the ones who became part of the Democratic Party. So you have some of the urban workers, some of the new immigrants, and then the South, and then some of the West states. That's a coalition of the Democratic Party. And finally, by 1930, after the Depression, when the Democratic Party began as the party that provide what? Provide the welfare system, okay? The Social Security and unemployment compensation. The black gradually moved to the Democratic Party because they were the one who were in the most disadvantaged position. So the transformation of the Democratic Party by 1930s, they brought in the blacks, they brought in the urban workers, they brought in the new immigrants. The Republicans, still the party of the Protestant, the party of the big business, the party of the industrialist, and so Republican Party didn't win the election from 1932 until 1952 for 20 years under Roosevelt. And then what happened? The South, okay, people began to say, hey, we are free, but then we have all this law that prevent us from becoming full citizens. So we have the civil rights movement in the South. People said, how can you continue to go to the segregated school? Now, segregation in America was considered to be legal. Why? How can you separate people? Can we do this today? Saying, we are separating a theater for those who are bald and those with lots of hair. I mean, I don't think we have that problem in here. Somehow Asians do not have a lot of bald people. Huh? Not as bad as the Caucasians. What else do we have? What could be a big problem here? Let's say we separate people. Okay, we separate the short people and the tall people. Okay, so the tall people can go to this particular theater, and the short people will go to the other one. Now, if I said the two theaters are identical, exactly the same, then there is no discrimination. Can I justify this? Do you agree if, for example, if student at Tsinghua, we say, those from north of Hsinchu, you live in this dorm. Those from the south of Hsinchu, you live in another dorm. Okay, but the dorms are exactly the same. You have the same hours of hot water for your shower. Can we do that? Identical, exactly the same. Oh, do you have that here? I mean, you're laughing. I thought, you actually have. Can you do that?
No.
Why not?
Maybe I like to live with someone in other cities.
Okay. Now here, back in the 19th century, America said separate but equal. So if I said this is the water fountain for the colored people, and this is the water fountain for the white people, but if they are exactly the same, both are total, huh? Both, water fountain 有 total 吗 ？total 好像是 toilet， 是不是？那个 total 牌是什么？是马桶吧？不是饮水机啊。Okay, but let's say the same toilets, okay? Separate but equal. Back in 19th century, 1896, the American Supreme Court said separate but equal. But then in 1954, 58 years later, they said separate but not equal. Okay, so what happened in these 58 years? You said, you because I want to mingle with someone from a different place. Okay, so that's a good reason. But I thought people always said birds of the same feather flock together. So I'm helping you. Because you want to talk to people from your own hometown. You want to, associate with them. You have the same memory. So I'm helping you. Why are you accusing me of discrimination?
I think it should be decided from white authority to that.
It should be decided by
Authority to that. If it is a good idea.
But why is it discrimination? You have the same thing. That dorm to your classroom is exactly 169 steps. 也是169步. You understand the 169 thing? You know, the October 1st parade. China, all those parade, people walk 169 steps, right? Because they remember that after 169 years after the Opium War. Okay. But I'm just using 169 as a number. So this dorm to your classroom, 169 steps. That dorm to your classroom, 169 steps. You said, well, hey, discrimination. I can sleep 3 seconds more because I'm closer. But exactly the same. How can you say I'm discriminating? Well, it's like your parents making, 2 identical rooms for you and your brother. Exactly the same. How can you say that's discrimination? But you cannot go to each other's room.
I think it's okay, but in America, environment use the phrase black from white. It is a kind of.
Okay, but somehow, the American Supreme Court justice said that when kids were separated, somehow inside of them, they feel there is a sense of inferiority. Like, why can't I associate with someone else? So that will make it difficult for their life in the future. So integration means, or desegregation means you allow them to integrate, and then, they will not have that sense of being different. They are part of the overall society. So that's the argument. But for a long time, for more than 58 years, the American legal system said, as long as I provide you the same facility, it's not discrimination. But then the question is, if I live in my neighborhood, I cannot go to the next school, which is very close by because it is a white school. I have to travel, walk a long way to my black school. Of course, that's discrimination. But later, we find some of the liberals, they went one step further because what happened? People said, we ought to go to our neighborhood school. And then you found out people live in segregation. So this is the black neighborhood, you go to a black school. This is a white neighborhood, you go to the white school. And people are still not integrated. So the Democrats, the liberals, got a strange idea. They said, why don't we just bus those people from the white neighborhood, because they try to flee from integration, we will put them back to integrate. It caused a lot of trouble. Before, it was the black people who cannot go to their neighborhood school. They have to be bused to a black school. But now it's the black who is bused to a white neighborhood so they can integrate. Do you understand the difference? It's almost like Tsinghua University. You have so many people from all this, good high school, too many 建中北一女. I have to limit the number of 建中and 北一女, right? I need you to associate more with 强数同学. I need to bus some 强数 students and coming, to this university. Something like that. But this is the problem when the Democrats in the South, conservative, they do not want to have desegregation or integration. They begin gradually moving to the Republic. So from 1960, I think in this book, it did mention that, right? Lyndon Johnson, what's the page number? Number 30, page 34. Okay, the second paragraph, right? Lyndon Johnson. Ultimately, Lyndon Johnson chose the right side of the battle, but as a son of the South, he was from Texas. He understood better than most the cost involved with the choice. Signing the Civil Rights Act of 1964, he will tell his aide, assistant Bill Moyer, that with the stroke of a pen, like a sunlight signature, he had just delivered the South to the GOP, the Grand Old Party, the Republican Party, for the foreseeable future. That's so true. Since 1964, the South has been Republican. So you can see the difference now. The conservative of the South, who used to be against slavery, they supported the Democratic Party, but now moved because the Democratic Party become the progressive party, become the party that care for the minorities, and they moved to the Republican Party. Republican Party that emancipated the slaves, and now it's the party of mostly white, we call the WASP. Okay, what is a WASP? W-A-S-P. Yeah, do you know what is a wasp? Wasp is like a bee. No. But wasp is what? White, Anglo, Saxon, Protestant. Okay. 白的，安德鲁萨克逊，新教徒。Okay. By the way, those people are still the majority in America. Okay, maybe by 2050, 40 years later, okay, the whites will become minority. Okay? But right now they are about, so Republican Party become the WASP Party. The Democratic Party become the party that elected the first Catholics to American presidency. So, Ms. Yi, do you know which president? Every president in America has been a Protestant, Christian Protestant, 新基督教徒. Only one Catholic. Which one? By the way, Barack Obama is also a Christian. Okay, not a Muslim. A lot of people think he might be a Muslim, but he's not, okay? The only Catholic president, John Kennedy, okay? Democratic Party. Democratic Party, the only one that, put up the black candidates and win. So, you can see the shift of the two parties. It takes about 100 years, but the process has been completed in the late 60s and early 70s, and the South has become Republican, okay, compared to 100 years ago. You can also think of Taiwan. Taiwan used to be like Jiayi County, Tainan County. It's so KMT. KMT is so faction politics, but now the DPP is also involved, getting all the agriculture votes than before. So there is a little bit shift in that as well. Okay, so read the first 4 chapters of the book. You understand the two parties now. I want you to look at the values as well as constitution and politics. Now, if you follow earlier, we have the speech. You can see Barack Obama really tried to pretend to talk a little bit Republican as well. In his book, he's trying to do that. He's saying, no, there is no, red states, blue states, the United States. I don't know whether that's a good idea, but he tried to, to bridge the differences, to bridge the gap. So read the first 4 chapters. We will discuss that next time. And if you happen I will ask you next week, okay? Those people, name appear. You never heard them. Better check up the Google to see who they are, okay? And have some idea, a little bit idea, okay? Because next time when I ask you, I'm going to put down, like class participation grades.